Yule's terrifying magnetic field not only lifted every building and patch of land, but also slammed them into each other, shattering the space into a mess of rubble. Behind him, a blazing light surged up, the heat rising so unnaturally high it made it hard to breathe. That outburst of power was so crazy, it made the god of death lose it. "You think I'll let you succeed?" he roared, quickly conjuring up a bunch of formations, flashing like warning lights, fused with his necrotic energy to fight back. "I am the immortal, indestructible god. Do you understand that?" Two crimson formations squeezed in from both sides, pinning the god of death in front of the green formation. The sound of the energy tearing through the air roared in Yule's ears, that foul aura trying to blow everything apart, but Yule's barrier didn't even flinch. He looked cool as hell, one hand holding up the shield, the other clenched tight, knuckles cracking even though he wasn't holding anything. Turns out, he was using magnetism to fling a bunch of boulders straight into the god of death's face, shutting that big mouth up real quick. Then he smashed down dozens of buildings from all directions, burying the god under a pile of destruction. The idiot had time to dodge but didn't, and now, peeking out from the rubble, he screamed, "You can't treat me like this. If you kill me, your daughter dies too." Yule could clearly saw her emerald eyes just stared at him, unreadable. He looked at Arie and suddenly remembered that time. Under the fading sunlight, his daughter buried a small dog with her own hands and said, "Life is just too fragile. I'll live earnestly every day until my life reaches its end." And then, back then, of course, Yule didn't know when Arnie's life would end. She was supposed to outlive her old man, right? But now, through the crumbling dirt and rock, her gentle voice called out, "Dad," and it shot straight to Yule's ears. Her face was radiant, exactly like in his memories all those years. She smiled brightly and said, "I'm ready." Whatever was tearing at Yule's heart up to that point suddenly snapped. He stared at Arie, stunned. Of course, she knew how badly her dad wanted to keep her around. Yule remembered hugging her lifeless body, crying all night, from the freezing darkness until the sun gently rose. All he'd wanted then was just to hold her a little longer, to feel her warmth, even if just a little. His cloak fell. Yule wrapped his arms tightly around Arie, the daughter he hadn't dared to look at, let alone touch, since she came back. Too precious. The second he touched her, tears burst from his eyes, just like the day they were torn apart by life and death. "Arie," Yule choked out her name, and that was all he could say. But she understood everything. Strands of her golden hair began to flake away like paper touched by flame. Arie closed her eyes and whispered softly, "I will always love you, Dad." She rested her head on his shoulder and vanished. All that was left was a trail of golden mist, floating, then fading away, leaving Yule all alone. The god of death probably didn't die, but now he was trapped inside a perfectly round ball of rubble, sealed off so he couldn't go crazy again. The scene burned bright in the sky, and even those outside the battlefield could see it. What kind of magic was that? It asked the question out loud, not expecting an answer. Who the hell was going to respond anyway? Out of nowhere, a beam of light shot down like lightning, barely missing its head, making the god duck just in time. That was Deity, dashing past like a flash, only to boomerang back, right hand blazing with Ice Fist, left hand burning with Fire Fist. Ice and fire smashed straight into Nature God's face, twisting it sideways. The freezing cold hit first, only to be scorched seconds later at the same spot by the fire. Still, it wasn't enough to take him down. The god turned its face forward again and opened wide. Then, whoosh, unleashed a giant fire blast straight toward the panda's face. Deity blasted upward like a rocket and, though tiny, landed a punch that once again knocked Nature God's face to the side. The god just couldn't match Deity's speed. One moment of carelessness, and bam, punched right in the face again. No more of this. He opened his mouth and started spewing water, glug, 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 until it turned into a massive flood, sweeping Deity away. He's not going to drown, but that water, it was spit, okay? How the hell was anyone supposed to swim in that? Deity wasn't afraid of brutal fights, long battles, or life and death struggles. This, gross. While those two were busy duking it out, up above, down below, the forest spirits were losing their minds trying to escape the oncoming tsunami. They screamed and ran, but no way were they faster than that flood. It swallowed them up in no time. They were supposed to be Nature God's allies, but his actions said it loud and clear. Screw y'all. The ground below turned into a sea, and Nature God roared with laughter from above. If the land becomes water, you'll have nowhere to stand. Oh yeah. Deity's tiny feet went tap, tap, tap across the surface. Every time Deity's foot touched down, a patch of ice formed right under it, letting it glide across the water like lightning. Still about 10 meters away from nature god, it froze a whole chunk of rock into a glacial platform, leapt onto it for momentum, then launched high into the air, shouting, "Thunder kick!" This time, no punches. Wine Deity fired a flying kick straight into nature god's face. Damn thing really loved smashing that smug face. Wine Deity's power was insane for such a tiny body. Nature god went crashing sideways, head and butt both slamming into the water, sending out a massive splash that made the panda smirked. The god slowly pulled himself out of the water, not rushing to strike back. Instead, he glared at Wine Deity and asked, "Are there any skills you're unable to use?" Oh, if you're asking, Wine Deity was more than happy to answer. Aside from void, darkness, and light, yeah, I have everything. Even nature god had to admit, it was worthy of being one of the 10 great beasts. Its power was no joke. He said he didn't underestimate it, but the way he said it was soaked in sarcasm, and Wine Deity's face instantly scrunched up like a monkey's butt. "No need for flattery," it snapped. "Your words sound like bullshit to me." The god burst out laughing like a maniac, his spiritual power and flame energy swirling around him in a giant pillar of chaos. His body suddenly bulked up, fur standing on end, radiating an eerie aura. Wine Deity grit his teeth, taking a few steps back, freaked out inside. Crap, his power levels rising again? Looked like another god had just died somewhere, and that made nature god real damn happy. He opened his mouth and laughed in ecstasy. "The power's flooding into me non-stop. Looks like another one of your gods bit the dust." Wine Deity had no clue what the hell was going on. Why was he so happy about people on his own side dying? And he straight up confirmed it. "Damn right. I hope you kill a few more of them." Wine Deity didn't even finish asking before the guy opened his mouth and blasted out a beam of spirit energy, splitting the water around into 2 towering walls. Shit, that was fast. Wine Deity's vision went dark, eyes tracking the beam's movement. This wasn't good. It jumped up with all its might, and right as it did, it felt the heat singeing under its butt. This wasn't like the fire beam from before. Hesitate even a second, and you'd get roasted. The beam slammed into the mountain behind them with a thunderous boom. Even the air shook from the impact. When he looked back, the side of the mountain had been carved into a deep scar, a few streams of lava still bubbling inside. Oh shit, that might have looked like a beam of light, but it hit like molten hell. Seeing that gave Wine Deity a bit of a chill. This god's not just crazy, he's upgraded now with someone else's power. Things just got a whole lot harder. Damn it, the panda cursed under his breath. So this bastard got even more power from the other dead gods? Nature god grinned wide, showing off that nasty set of teeth. "Looks like I only become troublesome when I face you, huh?" he laughed. "Heard you can play with every element, isn't that right?" A raging cyclone appeared, swirling with 2 opposing colors. Firestorm mixed with windstorm, cutting winds and blazing heat combined. Nature god didn't even bother fixing his face after getting punched in earlier. He just cackled. "A god must be invincible. Divine power shall be inherited, eternal and undying." And with that, the fire-wind pillar shot straight at Wine Deity, who looked like a tiny sprout against a hurricane. But you know how stubborn that panda is. It didn't dodge. Instead, it raised an arm to shield its face and stood its ground, casting petrification, turning its body to stone to withstand the blast. Wine Deity got slashed all over in an instant, blood spraying out like confetti. It gritted its teeth, growling in pain, tried to hold its ground, but nope, it had to move, and once it did, nature god spotted it right away. "Where you going, huh? Who said you could run? Take this, Supreme Wind Slash." Nature god whipped his head like some city boy flipping his hair. A blinding streak of light followed the arc of his movement, slicing straight toward Wine Deity. Guess those earlier cuts weren't enough. He really wanted to finish the job. Wine Deity had already moved, slipping through the raging winds, charging straight toward nature god. But the slash came flying in. It cut a nearby mountain like slicing through tofu. Still blazing with power, it reached Wine Deity in the blink of an eye. Only half a meter away, the heat alone scorched the panda's face, and then bam, it struck dead on. The panda got blasted into the water with a massive splash. Steam exploded upward. Wine Deity sank to the bottom, smashing through rock after rock, scattering everything into a chaotic blur. The water churned his blood away instantly, gone as soon as it left its mouth. Though gravely wounded, the panda noticed something glimmering strangely above, like sunlight dancing on the ocean. But this wasn't some tropical beach vacation. This was spit water from that hairy freak up there, and that maniac was launching another massive fire column straight at his opponent. The water evaporated the second it touched the heat, and the rocks melted into hazy black streaks. Still not satisfied, nature god was conjuring up a blazing golden orb, aiming to crush Wine Deity flat. But it was enough to kill Bro 9. He was still alive, though battered to hell. Seeing him in such rough shape made nature god grin. He started forming another glowing orb and boasted, "You don't have light power, but I do." It was true. Wine Deity didn't have the light element, but it had something close enough. Behind it roared forth the Red Lotus, Flame Sun Sphere, a signature move after devouring hundreds of firestones. "This is my strongest attack. I'm gonna crush you with it." The panda roared, merging with the Flame Sun Sphere and shot straight at nature god's beam of light. The light beam looked slim, but it tore straight through the sphere, pierced Wine Deity's belly, and sent the panda flying 20 meters back. Nature god chuckled darkly. Then whoosh! Something shot out beside him, a giant tentacle now enlarged and wriggling. "Nature's growth," he called it. "Nature, my ass." Wine Deity didn't expect to get snagged, but now it was bound tight, arms and legs trapped in those slick tentacles. Wiggling even its butt didn't help. Those things just squeezed tighter. "Ha! Ha! Ha! Where's all that cocky attitude now, huh?" Nature god reeled the panda closer, looking it over like a trophy. But then, Wine Deity raised a hand, found a tiny opening. Slash! A massive ice spike blasted out of its palm, right into the god's face, drilling a giant hole straight through. Blood gushed everywhere and froze instantly, sealed tight by the intense cold. Smoke rose from the frostburn. Still grinning like a boss, Wine Deity snapped, "What the hell are you laughing at? I'm still alive, dumbass." Only 2 seconds of silence passed before rage took over the god's humiliation. "You little bastard, you're done. I'll tear you apart piece by piece." He squeezed the panda tighter, and dozens of glowing orbs lit up around him. A breathtaking scene. Beautiful, deadly. Wine Deity didn't flinch. It grinned. "I haven't even gone all out yet, genius. You think you're the only one who can get stronger, huh?" "What?" Nature god blinked, suddenly nervous about what this creature freak might be pulling. That's right. Spiritual energy exploded along every inch of Wine Deity's skin. "I thought I only needed half my power to beat you. Guess I need more of it." Unlike those gods who had 3 times or 7 times their usual power, Wine Deity only had one move when facing monsters like this. Just like when it fought Euclair, gather all energy into its heart and detonate. Not far away, Lava Dragon was still locked in battle with the dwarves. But he suddenly grew anxious. He looked up. "Brother Nine?" That burst of spiritual energy could only mean one thing. He's going all in. A blinding pillar pierced the ashen sky, fire at its hottest. Wine Deity had trained non-stop, but fate kept throwing insane enemies in its path, forcing it to blow itself up again and again. Good thing it was used to this crap by now. Inside the inferno, its body tensed. Tentacles hissed and sizzled, snapping one by one, pop, 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 like fireworks. The flames howled like beasts in its ears. And yet Wine Deity's voice rang out crystal clear. "I am the strongest beast in Misty Wraith Mountain. To die by my hand, consider it an honor." Nature god squinted, alarmed when he saw one side of Wine Deity's body look like it had been swallowed by lava. Grotesque, terrifying. This form, after fusing every element, I call it explosive mode. Nature god finally shut up. His eyes gleamed, analyzing the opponent seriously. Not only did his appearance change, his mental power also increased dramatically. The panda hovered high above, glaring down with pride. "Let's see, between your dumb god strength and my full power, who's stronger?" Nature god answered with a sky-piercing howl. Giant bolts of thunder wrapped around him, shooting upward from the ground. He was charging up. Wine Deity leaned back, puffed out its chest, and took one hell of a deep breath. So deep it seemed endless. Then its body snapped forward like an arrow loosed from a bow, letting out a piercing roar straight toward the enemy. Both of them unleashed their full might, colliding in an all-out clash. And to everyone's shock, Nature god's thunder shattered like an overinflated balloon. "What the hell?" Eyes wide, Nature god froze. Wine Deity was racing straight at him, lightning spear in hand. Brother Chin's arm looked like a lightning rod, pulling all the thunder into a massive charge in his hand. The weight of it made his eyeballs feel like they were about to burst, tiny red veins popping up around his pupils. "You punched a hole in me at the start, didn't you?" he growled. "Then let me return the favor." With that, his body shot into the sky. Once he was just above Nature god's head, he hurled the thunder spear down, aimed straight at the guy's neck. Not good. Nature god twisted his body as fast as he could, swerving away like a desperate eel. If that thing landed on his neck, it wouldn't matter how powerful his spirit energy was, he'd be fatally wounded. By some insane stroke of luck, he barely dodged it. His body flailed through the air, writhing like a slippery fish, but he did dodge. Looking back at the cloud of smoke and debris where the spear hit, a chill ran down his spine. Even now, his hands were shaking. Dodging that didn't feel like luck. It felt like cheating death. If he'd taken that hit, one hole probably wouldn't have been the end of it. "You dare dodge it?" Wine Deity was fuming. Grinding his teeth, he summoned a whole damn arsenal of thunder spears from his back. You thought I only had one? I've got more. Plenty more. Wine Deity's grin stretched wider, crooked like every villain ever. Even one spear was enough to make nature gods sweat. Now there were a dozen? No way in hell he could dodge that many. So he didn't. Instead, he opened his mouth and cast Windshield. A high-speed air barrier shimmered to life in front of him. His attempt at resistance only pissed the panda off more. Wine Deity lunged forward, arm outstretched, channeling the spears in the direction he pointed. Go! With a roar, the thunder spears fired off in unison. They pierced through the windshield like it was nothing but tissue paper. Not a direct hit, but each one slashed deep cuts down both sides of Nature God's body. That hurts. He instantly regretted not dodging. Snarling in pain, he whipped his tentacles forward, sharpening the tips, and charged them straight at Wine Deity, trying to use the chaos to strike back. But the panda had already predicted that, and couldn't care less. The collision lit up the sky with a boom, sparks exploding out from the impact. Even though suspended midair, Wine Deity didn't flinch, not an inch. His smirk was enough to show it. Its power had completely outclassed the god. The nature god roared loudly, "Don't you dare look down on me." In his head, he quickly came up with a way to fight back, using whatever was around, specifically the spit it had just spat out. Lifting its head high, all the spit rose like a net being yanked upward, surrounding the Wine Deity right in the middle. They clung together fast, turning into a water orb, locking the Wine Deity inside. Then it froze over in a blink, looking just like a boba cheese pearl. It was the flood at first, then turned into extreme eastern ice, a move usually used to finish the fight when the enemy had no way to escape. There. Ha ha! The nature god laughed gleefully through the cloudy water. This world belongs to the gods. Only the gods have the power to control. He took his sweet time to finish the sentence, not seeing a single twitch inside the extreme eastern ice. Convinced that the beast was dead for sure, it roared, "You, go to hell!" Gigantic thunderblast. A massive bolt of lightning suddenly struck down with a deafening boom. It came so fast and so fierce that it looked like a pillar of water crashing onto the ice. But really, it was a supercharged electric blast, meant to fry and completely destroy whatever was inside. Flashing between white and blue, a small dark shadow could be seen. The nature god's attacks grew stronger by the second, like it was pouring every last bit of strength into that move. It wouldn't rest until that panda was burned to ash. The whole flat city got split into 4 even chunks from that gigantic thunderblast. The sheer destructive power drained a good chunk of the nature god's spirit energy. That panda's got to be dead by now, right? Maybe even burned up, turned to dust? Just as he thought that, he saw something, and his jaw clenched tight, eyes flaring wide with bloodshot veins. Hello there. It was the Wine Deity, backlit against the light, flying up from beneath the torn-up ground with a smile. Right at when he saw the Wine Deity, he felt his blood pressure spike straight to the top. How? How could this be happening? There's no way this is real. Nature growth. Vines out of nowhere suddenly grew gigantic in a flash, wrapping tight around the Wine Deity, squeezing it so hard you could hear the crunch. The nature god was desperate now. This time, he even morphed the vine heads into needle tubes, stabbing into the Wine Deity to drain its spirit energy. The energy leaked from those holes and floated upward like blazing fire. The Wine Deity frowned, assessing how much energy it was losing, but didn't act just yet. The spirit energy was draining even faster than before, which meant this so-called god still had plenty of fight left. He wasn't exhausted after that big lightning move, not even close. While maintaining the nature growth, the ground bulged beneath the Wine Deity's feet. The nature god had unleashed earthquake, turning the soil into towering pillars that moved like they had a mind of their own, slamming down on the Wine Deity. The weight of the earth was used to crush the panda. From a distance, you could only see a tiny speck in the middle, top and bottom, 2 blocks smashing down. Left and right, 2 pillars lunging in. The Wine Deity was under pressure from all 4 sides, but looked chill as ever. Its tiny arms strained, yet it still had a smile on its face. If you didn't hear the soft groaning sounds coming from its mouth, you'd think it was playing some game for fun. Too bad the nature god had no clue how relaxed it really was. Maybe he was nearsighted and couldn't see from far away. While burning up his strength to keep both nature growth and earthquake going, his whole body was trembling, yet he still forced out a smug laugh. "Die, you beast! Just die already! Die! Die!" He sounded so ridiculous that the Wine Deity couldn't help but open its beak. "You really think that's enough to beat me?" Done toying with the god, he unleashed a Red Lotus Thunderfire Sun Orb, a signature panda move amped up with lightning, giving it insane destructive power. The second it touched the earthquake terrain, it exploded like crazy, blasting stone pillars in every direction. The giant rocks meant to crush Wine Deity were melted away in massive chunks. Nearly 40 meters cleared out on both sides. I'm the strongest beast alive. You think I'd die by your hand? The Wine Deity shot out of its spot, carrying the sun orb, blasting forward so fast it became a streak of light aiming straight for that annoying face. The nature god had thrown everything he had at the Wine Deity and couldn't even leave a scratch. He was already running out of patience. Come on, if you've got the guts, come at me. Let's settle this like gods do. Like the Wine Deity would bother fighting hand-to-hand with some lunatic calling himself a god. It wasn't going to fall for that anymore. Hey bastard, this world doesn't need you. With that, the flaming orb slammed head-on into the skull-armored figure. They hadn't even collided yet, but the shockwaves already blew rocks everywhere. From their earlier exchange, the god already sensed he was outclassed. But his stubborn nature wouldn't let him back down, wouldn't let him beg for mercy or help. Now, on the verge of impact, he suddenly hesitated. His body stalled for just a second, and the sun orb slammed right into his face, folding him in half with pain. Was it fear? The nature god felt like all his veins were bursting, his muscles snapping like strings all at once. His massive body shattered like a porcelain vase that was already cracked, chunks flying everywhere. I'm a god. I don't want to. As more and more of him faded, his voice got choked up. Even the words "don't want to die" couldn't come out fully before he disappeared completely. The flaming sun orb launched the Wine Deity high into the sky, then bang, it crashed back down to earth. Anyone watching might have thought it was under attack, but nah, it was just so damn tired, it let itself fall like a rag doll. One miscalculation and it'd be in the gutter by now. Luckily the math checked out, still above ground. That move wore me out. Geez. If Brother Nine weren't so wiped, he would have screamed. I won, but he was too tired. So what now? Sleep. Just a little nap, okay? Didn't need permission. The little panda closed his eyes, and before 3 seconds passed, he was out cold. Just a bit of sleep. Snore. It was the kind of deep sleep you only get on lazy days in Misty Mountain. Nothing like what White Tiger was going through right now, roaring in frustration. Its fight had barely started, and it hadn't gained a single advantage, even with Shaolan by its side. The girl clutched a tuft of fur on its neck and shouted, "Little White, attack the lower left side." The obedient tiger listened and blasted a shot straight at the spot. It was all smoke and dust, no way to tell if it hit anything. But they didn't need to see. Shaolan could sense spirit energy. She was totally shocked, though, because the dumb tiger had actually hit some weird machine part. To be exact, the god they were up against had revealed its true form, a body full of machinery. It exposed itself completely and proudly declared, "I am the 4th strongest god in the world, the god of knowledge. His name is Yuan Bo." Before even finishing the sentence, it yanked off its own cloak with a flourish, revealing a pair of mechanical legs. Its whole body looked like a hybrid of insect and dolphin standing on 2 feet, glinting with a metallic sheen. Didn't match its name or vibe at all, but Shaolan didn't care. What mattered was, the moment it finished talking, its power level spiked. "Little White, blow that nut job away." The tiger obeyed and fired the same spirit beam as before at Yuan Bo. But the god shot one right back at them. It scoffed. Child's play. And it wasn't just talk. Its beam drilled through White Tiger's attack like a spike through paper, carving a glowing path straight toward White Tiger's face. This dumb tiger, after all the battles it's been through, still gets caught off guard like a rookie. Light sweeps across its face, and it just stares wide-eyed like an idiot. A direct hit from White Tiger. Its spiritual beam flares briefly before continuing its blinding path, lighting up everything below, even the black pillar where that so-called god is standing. There's a whoosh in the wind as a shadow with wings flaps backward, blowing off the smoke clinging to its body. Little White launches straight at the god, using good old physical combat, the kind only the stubborn dare try. A loud thud echoes out, surprisingly clean, caught the god off guard. "What? Dared to go physical? Ha! Bold, but foolish," the god scoffs. "Strong body, sure, but it's nothing compared to my artificial one. Eye of Heaven." White Tiger deliberately went for a headbutt to trigger its Eye of Heaven, aimed it right at Yuanbo's face. But he just casually leaned aside like swatting away a fly and even started rambling. "That's exactly why I upgraded my entire body." And before White Tiger could react, the god's claw latched deep into its front leg. A crunch, followed by a gurgle of dark red blood spewing from White Tiger's mouth. Bastard! He knew Little White could fly and escape, so he went for the front limb on purpose. White Tiger let out a roar of pain, and the god, eyes locked in, zeroed in on its tail. ready to bite. White Tiger roared, then lashed its tail like a whip, looping it around the god's neck and tightening hard. From behind, a figure leaped in. It looked human. His teammate was none other than Shaolan, fists loaded, ready to slam the god of knowledge right in his shiny face. Got him! Hold him tight! When the hell did she sneak around? The god cursed, eyes bulging as Shaolan closed in. Too late now. The tiger's tail was still locked around his neck. No letting go. Shaolan's punch didn't look like much, but when it landed, it split an entire side of the god's bulky frame. She charged without blinking, even as his skin scattered into chunks all over the place. Don't be fooled by how Shaolan usually stays quiet and analyzes spiritual energy. Under that short hair is a razor-sharp mind, the only kind that could ever lead Dumb Tiger. As Shaolan's punch blasted clean through the other side of the god, White Tiger immediately sensed something off. In that mess of broken parts was the god's eye, separated cleanly, now attached to a small toy-sized body. His limbs glinted with a metal sheen and had fine, intricate details. That eyeball darted around and stared right back at White Tiger with no fear at all, almost daring them to see his true form. He puffed himself up to look all big and mighty, but in reality, his real body was just this tiny little thing. Before anyone could even think that this puny god of knowledge would be so easily crushed, he let out a roar to intimidate. You think you've already won, don't you? The moment he finished yelling, parts of his body suddenly broke apart, shooting off in all directions, completely ignoring White Tiger. The Dumb Tiger turned its head to look, dumbfounded by how quickly those pieces reassembled. His head, arms, and legs snapped into place on a body that appeared out of thin air, forming a brand new shape, nothing like the giant form just moments before. I can reshape my body however I want. That's the power of knowledge. Boasting loudly, he puffed up his chest and boom, a barrage of spirit light blasted forward. It was aimed at White Tiger, but didn't go straight. It curved upward, then crashed down onto the tiger's head with such speed even it couldn't react in time. The strikes pounded the ground like dozens of concrete pillars trying to pierce the earth. The god of knowledge was clearly aiming to completely crush White Tiger, but to his shock, all it did was knock loose a few strands of white fur. The dust cleared around a pair of folded wings. White Tiger gently spread them open, revealing that Shaolan had been shielded safely inside. A flash of surprise ran through the god of knowledge's mind. He had known White Tiger was strong, but not this strong. It had taken that entire blow head-on, yet not a single scratch showed. Even so, on the outside he still shouted arrogantly, "I don't like long fights. Next move, I'll turn you into ashes." His right forearm extended longer than the left, looking like a giant chisel. When close enough, slashed down like a scythe reaping crops. White Tiger ducked just in time. The beam of light skimmed its head and crash, smashed into the black pillar behind, sending rubble tumbling down in a thunderous avalanche. Huge rocks rolled and tumbled, blanketing the area in a thick, dusty fog. Even with the chaos, the evil laugh of the god of knowledge rang out like some villain from a bad story. "Ha! You're too weak!" Looking at his claw, now soaked in blood, he grinned wide. He was sure the stupid White Tiger had died. This battle was boring now. So he looked up and spoke to someone unseen. "It's done here. Should we move to the next location?" Before he could finish the sentence, White Tiger's claw came swinging from behind, aiming to rip his head clean off. He barely dodged in time, turned his back to the tiger as the attack whooshed past. Clang! The claw hit like metal on sheet steel, sparks flying everywhere with a deafening noise. The god of knowledge didn't get hurt, but again, he was stunned. Wait, didn't I land a hit earlier? What shocked him more was that even though he clearly saw blood flying when White Tiger struck him, it didn't look like the tiger was in pain at all. No expression, no flinch. Even if its body was tough, a blow like that should have split it in two. How the hell did it have the strength to fight back so fast? Before he could figure it out, Shaolan flew in from the other side like a gust of wind. She showed up with no trace of spirit energy. Only when she got up close did he even notice, and by then it was too late. She spun midair and wham, kicked him square in the head, shouting, "Go the hell down!" The kick sent him flying like a broken piece of scrap metal, slamming into the ground. Shaolan landed right after, and the second her foot touched down, White Tiger lunged forward, jaws snapping around the god's head, dragging him across the floor. Bit down hard, sinking teeth into the tough metal plate on his forehead. Crack, crack. The sound was crisp, almost satisfying. Shit, not this spot. If it bites any deeper, it'll damage my core. His jointed limbs flailed, but he couldn't pry himself out of White Tiger's jaws. So he played dirty. Dozens of sharp spikes stabbed through White Tiger's body. Its front legs, neck, and torso were all pierced. Blood gushed out, and pain shot through every nerve. White Tiger had to summon every last ounce of grit just to keep its jaws clamped shut. It groaned in agony. When it couldn't take it anymore, it released a blast of spirit energy straight into the god's face. The blast hurled him far away and finally freed the tiger from the pain. Too bad. If it had just held on a bit longer, bit down just a little more on that core, this fight might have been over. But the energy blast only shaved off a bit of armor. Yuanbo was still in the game. He was fully alert, aimed straight for White Tiger's face, and swung his forearm with a loud smack. That arm looked stiff and clunky, but turned out to be surprisingly flexible and ridiculously strong. White Tiger's huge body went flying 10 meters, skidding across the ground before coming to a stop. Shaolan gasped in horror and shouted, "Little White!" But there was no reply. The dynamic duo was now split up. One was seriously injured. How were they supposed to fight the god like this? He chuckled darkly. "This body is stronger than you could ever imagine. That move of yours doesn't work on me." True to his name, the god of knowledge fought by using tricks and smarts. He talked big, but inside his head he was running all kinds of calculations. The problem was that girl. How could a mere human have that kind of power? White Tiger was strong, sure, but that girl's attack had rattled him too. Still, she looked weaker than the tiger, so he lunged toward her, hand wide open. "I'll get rid of you first." Shaolan, despite her ultra-sharp senses, had no idea when the god's hand came flying at her. She clenched her teeth in fear, trying to run, but it was too late. White Tiger's eyes bulged in terror from afar. This was exactly why Shaolan and it stuck together like superglue, because the girl had zero defense. That metal hand spread wide and grabbed Shaolan with ease. Her thin, frail body got snatched up and lifted high into the air, while the god's body remained where it was. Turns out it wasn't just the right arm that could stretch. His left arm, coiled like a spring, could launch out at terrifying speed and length. "Fall down!" He slammed his arm down so hard it gleamed with a cold, deadly blue. Wrapped up in that overwhelming power, she couldn't resist. Sweat soaked into its white fur, the tiger roared in desperation. "Everyone's gonna die!" Where Shaolan was, the god slammed her down, causing a massive crash, sent waves, stones, and dust flying like ocean waves slamming into rocky cliffs. Of course, the god's metal arm was totally fine. He leaned back and laughed. "Ha! Finally, one of my attacks actually finished someone off." He watched White Tiger charge like a maniac, rushing to Shaolan's side, only to slow down once it got there. The girl's breath was so faint it couldn't even ruffle a single strand of fur. This was the kind of scene the god of knowledge loved to see. He gathered every ounce of spirit energy, ready to bet everything on this final blow. "One left. You're next. Get ready to die." To him, the true threat had always been the girl. The stupid tiger, just thick skin and muscle. But he had no idea. At that moment, White Tiger's energy exploded, flaring up red like flames licking across its body. Its teeth clenched tight, sharp fangs fully bared. It transformed completely. White Tiger had broken through. 6 minutes earlier, at the base of the black pillar, the people were still locked in relentless battle. Standing out the most was Dark Tiger, who had just unleashed its move, Shadow Invasion. It was like a wave of darkness bursting out from its core, engulfing everything around and dragging enemies into the void. That's when it noticed one creature lying there with its body sliced in half, metal shining where it was cut, sparks twitching along the edges. Were these enemies machines? It didn't get time to think more, because from above came a loud cracking noise, like a screen tearing open. A black rift split the sky wider and wider until two more of those same beasts came crawling out, just like the ones Dark Tiger had killed earlier. Same ferocity, same massive numbers. No choice but to face them head on. Dark Tiger charged forward, grumbling inside. "Will you ever stop popping up? There's more of you than ants on a sugar bun. Guess we'll have to kill that god up there after all." Right then, a wave of pressure came crashing down that nearly made Dark Tiger's bones crack. Imagine walking down the street and someone dumps a whole bucket of ice water on you from way up high, except this ice water was something very familiar to Dark Tiger. This was White Tiger's. What in the world was going on up there? It wasn't just Dark Tiger who felt it. Even the blue markings on the black pillar started turning red, soaking in White Tiger's energy. But White Tiger's energy had always been blue. Why red now? A low, guttural roar came down with undeniable force. Its eyes, now glowing red to match the crimson patterns streaking its fur, burned like hellfire. It hadn't even moved yet, and the air had already frozen over from the sheer killing intent. This wasn't a battle anymore. This was the start of a massacre. All because that damned god of knowledge dared to kill dear Shaolan. Yuanbo could feel something was off too. but all his big brain could come up with was his energy and appearance are completely different. Different? You think different is enough to describe this? The moment White Tiger's eyes locked onto him, glowing with rage, mouth open showing fangs that wanted to rip everything apart, the ground around them cracked open with holes big and small. By the time Yuanbo realized what was happening, White Tiger's snarling face was already in his. Too fast. That's all he had time to think before his limbs flew up to block. But White Tiger didn't come to scare him. A slap so hard it messed up the god's teeth, lips, and everything in between. His so-called multifunctional body torn to pieces by one brutal hit. He looked down, horrified, watching his ultra-sturdy body parts scatter like scrap metal. That was fire, but he still had one more trick. The cannon under his torso hadn't been destroyed yet. He activated the laser, aimed at White Tiger. But before he could fire, the beast charged at him again. What the? Behind it, a massive red orb blazed like coming. The god of knowledge had no idea when it started gathering power. Was it trying to fight his laser with that? No, it wasn't that at all. White Tiger had compressed its spirit energy into a sphere, then unleashed it through a roar so forceful it was like popping an overinflated balloon. Boom! The pressure and spirit force slammed forward to crush its enemy. The laser cannon vanished within that blood-red blast. The metallic gleam of the god's body blinked out in seconds. He couldn't withstand that monstrous power. It didn't just hit him. It sliced off a whole corner of the black pillar, blasting everything behind it to shreds. What was left of the god of knowledge was just a clump of twisted scrap, sparking in midair, looking like someone's old aluminum trash waiting to be recycled. Seeing White Tiger was one more time charging to him, Yuanbo quickly reshaped his body into a brand new form, ugly as hell and freakishly twisted. Throwing open both blazing armpits, he howled, "This is the power formed from all my knowledge. This is my strongest form." White Tiger simply shot back with a short reply. Unforgivable? Wait, didn't this dumb tiger only know how to mumble stuff like everyone's gonna die since the beginning? He roared loud and clear, "You hurt Shaolan. That's unforgivable." The roar surged with killing intent, blasting like waves. This time, his tiger roar attack was sharper, more focused than before. With a furious snarl, the face of the tiger lunged toward the god of knowledge, forcing him to gather his spiritual energy once again. A new orb began to form, his laser cannon sucking up lightning from the sky, now clashing with White Tiger's blazing red spiritual energy. Both sides knew, no mercy, no holding back. The faster the fight, the better their chances. So White Tiger's roar collided straight on with the laser blast, both attacks massive and terrifying. Boom after boom echoed through the air as White Tiger slammed his head into the laser beam, denting it, warping the cannon like a crushed soda can. The two massive forces collided, and the space around them shattered. Not just the sky, even the ground, even the top of the black tower exploded in fire and debris. The destruction kept going for tens of seconds, expanding out to a radius of several kilometers. Then, silence. As the dust got swept away by the wind, the deformed body of the god of knowledge came into view. He collapsed onto the ground, and yet White Tiger stood firm. He walked forward, staring at the god like death himself demanding a soul. His third eye suddenly gleamed brightly. It had evolved with him, now a glowing red eye burning on his forehead. Who would have thought that even after a move like that, White Tiger still had juice left to fire more shots? Yuanbo finally panicked. Didn't matter how smart his brain was, he still needed spiritual energy to fight back, right? He shrieked in fear. Wait, if I take this hit, I'm dead for sure." White Tiger didn't listen. He was dead set on blasting this so-called god into nothing. But then, his body couldn't take it anymore. The massive tiger stumbled, coughing and hacking up blood, looking miserable as hell. It was like the blood was trying to flood out of him. The more he coughed, the darker and heavier it got. Yuanbo just stared silently, sizing him up. And the moment he was sure White Tiger was out of gas, all that cowardice vanished. The god raised his head with all his might, opening that giant mouth like a pit pointed at White Tiger. "You're strong, no doubt, but you're not used to this form yet. This battle is my victory." A blazing column of light gathered in his hand, a thunder spear, whipped up in his desperation. "This is the final blow." Yuanbo roared. White Tiger was done for. No matter how fierce that glare was, he was just a paper tiger waiting to die now. Right at that moment, something sharp stabbed into the corner of the god's eye, clean and brutal. That familiar small silhouette in the backlight, it was Shaolan. Her eyes were wide open, forcing herself to focus on her target as blood streamed down, nearly blinding her. Her strike looked small, but she had put everything into it, pierced deep into the god's outer armor, straight through to his core. You're not dead?" The god's eyes bulged, staring at Shaolan like he'd seen a vengeful ghost. That look in her eyes, so close and so unforgiving, he would never forget it. "Don't underestimate me just because I'm weak," Shaolan whispered, eyes locked onto his, because she had struck right at his core. With her ability to pinpoint an enemy's weakness, just one move was enough to take down a god who thought he was invincible. His robotic body collapsed with a heavy crash, and Shaolan, tiny as she was, stood there, firm and unshaken. One day, Yuziyu called Shaolan over and handed her a sharp little thing. "Take this and carry it with you," he said. "You'll be fighting alongside White Tiger. You'll definitely run into enemies way stronger than you." It looked like a chunk of cold ice, but when she held it, there wasn't any chill to it. Yuziyu pointed at it, explaining, "This piece of wood holds a massive amount of my spiritual energy. Work with it well. It suits your powers." Both he and Shaolan knew her biggest weakness was strength. White Tiger was one of the 10 most great beasts. If she wanted to fight side by side with it, she had to be strong too. So when she landed that punch on the God of Knowledge's face, Yuziyu's words echoed clearly in her mind. "You must win with a single move." Right after the Yuan bow was down, Shaolan immediately dove in and punched straight into his head, right where he kept his core, the thing he tried so hard to hide. Lifting the core up, Shaolan demanded, "You lot built those black stone pillars everywhere. What are you planning?" Funny enough, that slippery tongue of his disappeared. He answered straight, "It's teleportation formation." Back then, the lava dragon had also mentioned wanting to seize wormholes, and now this guy said teleportation? She pressed further. "You want to use those things to teleport to Earth?" The God of Knowledge's eyes widened for a second, then broke into a grin like he'd just heard the funniest joke ever. "You idiot. Let me tell you something." Shaolan's fist clenched tighter, like she wanted to crush him, but she held it in. She needed to know what these maniacs were really up to. "You're so dumb. This planet is nothing more than food for the great Emperor. The teleportation formation is just so the Emperor can get here sooner, to sit back and enjoy this planet at his leisure." Maybe reading her thoughts, the god laughed even louder. "This planet is just a snack for the Emperor. Even if I die, you won't escape. You'll all be devoured." Wanting to dig deeper, Shaolan stood firm and said, "We won't let you succeed. We'll destroy every black pillar you've set up." Of course, that made the god cackle like mad. He proudly bragged, "Every god's territory has a formation. Each city has 6 pillars. This planet? There are 72 pillars on this planet." Seeing the shock in Shaolan's eyes, he stared back with crazy eyes, grinning wider. "Think you can find where we hid them? Ridiculous. You know why we kept sending beasts to attack Dom's territory? Did you really think it was just to chase you guys out? Nah, it was to keep you from discovering this." His laughter echoed through the quiet air, maniacal and endless. Shaolan didn't respond. Eventually, he tired himself out laughing and went quiet. All his spiritual energy vanished without a trace. He was dead. The mouth that laughed so loud just moments ago was now silent. Shaolan pressed her lips tight, saying nothing. She threw the cold corpse of the God of Knowledge to the ground with a loud thud. He was already dead, but the frustration wouldn't leave her. Killing the gods only gave them a tiny clue. Over on Dragon Island, Yuziyu was still in the middle of a fierce evolution, with a pillar of spiritual energy shooting high into the sky. He was evolving right at the most critical time for the entire Azure planet. Pink Dragon whispered to her brother, "Master's been like this for 5 days. His energy keeps getting stronger. Must be about to break through." Even Yuziyu, deep in the leveling process, felt anxious. He might have had his eyes closed, but it was like his ears were always listening. Had the fight outside already started? Why did everyone's aura feel so weak? There could only be one reason. The enemy was strong. Has the opponent started to attack us? Yuziyu narrowed his eyes in thought. At that moment, in a city controlled by the Blossom Federation, everything was flipping like an earthquake had hit underneath. In the sky, Shaoling was channeling her spiritual power, turning her usual graceful butterflies into sharp, deadly weapons. She gathered them into a giant blade and brought it down hard onto a massive, shapeless lump. The brutal strike came with a burning effect, and the enemy was soon coughing up blood. Knowing he didn't have much time, the god forced himself up. His mouth filled with a massive spell and burst out in a stream of purple fire, blasting straight at Shaoling. Across from him, the fiery blade that had once looked stiff and rigid now flowed like a silk ribbon. The terrifying heat of her flame shield was still very real. It curled around her, protecting her while also growing into a counterattack, striking back at the purple blaze. From afar, Shaoling's flame shield exploded with a thunderous boom, smashing through the magic projectile and shattering buildings around them into pieces. Even the super beings nearby staggered, and they hadn't even been hit directly. Shaoling's strength was already at the top tier among Earth's super beings. If anyone could go one-on-one with a god and hold their own, it was her. But the bastard just wouldn't die, tougher than a cockroach. One of the nearby supers was so pissed he coughed up blood. What the hell would it take to finally bring this thing down? Looking at Shaoling, standing firm in the middle of the blazing inferno, he had to admit, she was the pillar of humanity. If not for her holding the front lines, he wouldn't have just been staggering. He and the entire outpost would have been wiped out long ago. The flames licked at tall buildings, charring them black in seconds. The whole place looked like hell on earth, but hey, still better than being burned alive. Blood was pouring from the god's smooth, bald head. His jagged teeth clenched tight, but his voice rang out clear. Everyone says humans are the weakest species on Blue Planet. Absolute nonsense. Was that a compliment or an insult? Shaoling didn't care. She wasn't about to waste attention on some battered freak. She spat out a stream of blood, snorted, and her spiritual energy surged stronger than ever, showing she still had more to give. It's not absolute nonsense, she said. Humans are indeed the weakest. You're just unlucky to meet the strongest human. Ha! You think I'm unlucky? The god roared. You've got it backwards. I'm the strongest god there is. I'm the god of fertility, the supreme god. You hear me? Shaoling heard him loud and clear. She just didn't care. God or whatever, when facing her, there was only one outcome: death. Her unshakable attitude made the god of nourishment lose it. Hundreds of voices rang out from the glowing spiritual nodes crawling all over his body, twisting and echoing the same line. You're the unlucky one, meeting me. Humph. Shaoling snorted when the roaring flames around her vanished totally. The god blinked in confusion. Was she surrendering? Hey, the air is getting hotter and drier. The super beings were the first to notice. Fire exploded from Shaoling, blasting straight into the sky. The pressure hit the air like a hammer, triggering violent bursts all around her. She floated 5 meters above the ground, and everything beneath her scorched like it'd been flooded by lava. It still looked like fire, but it wasn't ordinary fire anymore. Chunks peeled off like wings unfolding from a phoenix, scattering around her. The transformation stunned the god. Fiery sparks, big and small, surrounded him like a trap. That pillar of fire shot up into the sky with a loud bang, blazing so bright it lit up an entire fortress. After a while of raging flames, her skin started to change. It sizzled and crackled, turning patchy red and black like heated metal. Even her face was marked with fiery patterns, no longer looking like human skin. Everyone could see her long hair still waved gracefully, and her clothes didn't even have a singe. Just goes to show how masterful her control over fire really was. The super beings witnessing this for the first time were all wide-eyed, not knowing what to say, except, she's all fire from head to toe. To be fair, no super being on the whole Blue Star had ever dared challenge Shaoling before. That's why now was the first time they truly got to witness her real power. After a round of transformation, she looked up at the god and let out a cheeky, hey smile. That strange expression, like she'd turned into someone else, gave the creeps to anyone. In a blink, Shaoling's figure was swallowed whole by a sea of fire. Only the heavens knew what she was up to. From behind, someone among the super beings shouted, "Everyone, step back now." It was that Dragon Court guard from earlier, warning the super beings still fighting in the rear. Whatever you do now, stop if you don't want to die here. Just run. No questions asked. Everyone broke away from the fight with the beasts and bolted, scrambling to find the flattest ground they could, and just ran like hell. The god only realized all the others had fled, leaving only this human girl facing him. He opened his mouth and sneered. Look at 'em run. All of them scared to die, afraid of dying in my hands. But Shaoling didn't even bother responding or look back at the fleeing soldiers followed their captain. Hearing the god's mocking words, they nervously asked, "Captain, are we really powerless against that god?" The captain shot back, "No, it's Shaoling." That was all he said before dashing ahead again. "I saw her like that once before," he said. "We were on a mission in the western region when suddenly a beast tide hit. Our squad was nearly wiped out." The captain shuddered at the memory. When faced with the gaze of one of those beasts, he had mentally prepared himself for death. Besides him, there was only one other squad member left, Shaoling. She had her fair share of wounds, but the way she looked at that monstrous beast wasn't like someone who had given up. It was the look of someone trying to find a way to fight back. And when he met her eyes, he didn't even know how he survived. He had no clue how she beat it either. That's all he could say. But what stayed with him was that exact same look. She'd summoned some strange fire, vanished into a burning inferno, and when she emerged again, the flames had devoured the beast entirely. Its fur, its flesh, gone. Only white bones remained. And there stood little Shaoling on the creature's skull, calm and proud. That was ages ago, back when Shaoling was still hiding among the super beings, only rank 3 at the time. Now, looking at the cracks spreading across her skin, he could tell. This time it was different. He thought back. She had this form even back then, but with just rank 3 power, she beat a rank 4 beast. That was the first time he witnessed her terrifying power, so of course he didn't think to run like now. Result, he got roasted by her flames, spent a whole year in the hospital. When Shaoling goes full power fire mode, she doesn't care who's who, friend or foe, it's all scorched. Even her own skin gets cooked. What hope does anyone else have? So now he only had one rule: run. Run like hell. Stay near her and you die. Simple as that. Her full power took time to charge, which gave the super beings a window to escape. Meanwhile, the monsters, now abandoned, turned their attention toward Shaoling. A dragon lunged forward from behind the health god to attack her. It didn't look like the usual monsters. It looked just like the ones from Dragon Island. A traitor dragon, clearly, now among the freakish enemy ranks, going straight for Shaoling. Just as the dragon opened its jaws to bite, the fire zipped through the air and sliced clean through its massive neck. The beast flew past Shaoling, headless, blood spraying past her like mist, but she didn't even glance at it. It all happened so fast, the god barely caught a glimpse before his underling's head went flying. From behind, other 2 massive beasts looked ready to devour Shaoling, but instead, they stood beside her, calm and obedient, completely untouched by the fire. A dragon and a centipede? What kind of duo is this? The health god paused for just a moment before it hit him. Then he burst out laughing. Oh, so that's it, huh? That's your secret power? I've got the same thing. No sooner had he finished laughing than the dragon and the centipede pounced, mouths wide open. Both struck at once, and it became clear. They weren't just spirit forms. They looked exactly like real beasts. Their attack speed was ferocious, and in no time, they'd torn holes into the god's body. He still looked pretty composed, but that hit just now rattled him hard. The impact nearly damaged his soul. Like all the gods, he had to protect the core beneath that giant frame. The dragon blasted him with a massive surge of spirit energy, and the centipede did the exact same thing from the other side. It should have been a clean hit, but when the dust cleared, someone else had taken the blow. Turned out the god had somehow pulled it in as a shield. Sure, he had great defense, but the god was panicking. He was terrible at movement, so he used newly born creatures to take the hit instead. So that's the real power of this god. He can spawn monsters tailored to his needs. From the sky, a streak of light shot forward like a rogue bullet. Shaoling, slender but deadly, twisted her body just a few meters away from the god and flung a hand forward. The flame launched from her palm like an arrow from a bow, wrapping around him instantly. Without missing a beat, she did the same with the other hand. Another fire blast, this time aimed straight at his front. It came down so fast it almost slapped the god's face off. He dodged the first strike, but the second came too fast. It struck near his neck, cleaving through his shoulder and lopping off the entire left side of his body. Even with that, the cutting flame didn't slow down. It shot straight into the sky without losing a bit of momentum. The boom was so loud it made the dragon court guards glance back in confusion. The light looked like rays piercing through the dark clouds. Beautiful, but clearly deadly. The sky itself was splitting open. The ground quaked violently, and when they looked up, a curtain of light had descended from the gloomy sky. The ground beneath split clean in two, looked just like a bottomless abyss. Oh my, the sky's been split open. The super beings all stopped dead in their tracks, staring up in shock. That cut had slashed straight down from the heavens, through the god who looked like a squirming pile of chaos, and left him split in half, blood gushing everywhere. Just when they thought the fight was over, a creepy rustling noise echoed out. From both halves of the god's body, a mass of tendrils started poking out, found their way toward each other. Slowly raised its ugly head again. Wheezing midair, the god managed to reconnect the pieces, but the dude looked totally drained. Bent over, huffing and puffing, all that arrogant swagger from before was completely gone. His big mouth clamped shut, not daring to spit out any cocky lines anymore. Whatever he was thinking, he kept it locked up tight in that head of his after the body was cut in half. A golden streak shot out like lightning, heading straight for his face that had just risen. In that instant, Shaoling's skin lit up again with a terrifying flow of molten fire. She'd given him time to heal, not out of mercy, but to make sure he didn't die too easily. The god knew it. If he dared to underestimate Shaoling again, he'd die right here. So, a whole swarm of eyeless snakes lifted their heads, all opened their mouths at once, firing off dozens of spirit energy blasts, tight and deadly, aiming to wipe Shaoling out. She instantly spun up her flaming dragon fist into a wild, furious tornado, wrapping herself at the center. The rotation was so intense, it transformed the attack skill into a defensive shield, smacking away the incoming blasts. Some slammed in and bounced off with loud cracks. Some got swallowed whole by the firestorm and vanished. The god had never seen anything like this before. His jaw dropped. Spirit blasts go in straight lines. How the hell did she spin them like that? Just spin, and that's it. Shaoling threw her hand forward and roared, "Here, take it back, you lunatic." The flaming dragon fist flared open like a giant fan, and the absorbed spirit blasts fired outward with a thunderous boom. "Birthing these things is giving me a damn headache," the god grumbled, too fed up to spawn more. Instead, he opened his mouth and spit out a purplish core orb. Shaoling, done reflecting her blasts, zipped forward like a streak of rage, a burning arrow of vengeance in her hand. She came in hot, aiming to shut him up for good. With a swing of her flame slash, she sliced straight through his throat, making him scream loudly. But she wasn't done. Oh no, not even close. She slashed again, same spot but opposite direction, cutting an X into his neck. Then another, and another, just carving him up like a wild butcher. Hacking his face alone wasn't enough. She went for his clutch of spirit eggs, too. With no way to dodge, the god could only frantically pop out wave after wave of offensive monsters with wings, which gave them slick aerial mobility. "Drag her down from the sky," the god roared through a gaping mouth, every word echoing into Shaoling's ears. A flame sparked in her palm. She whispered, "Rise," and fire came down like a storming rain, cutting off the winged beasts mid-charge. They were stubborn. They didn't dodge, didn't go around, just kept trying to fly through the sea of flames even while screaming in agony. Their bodies slowly faded into the blinding fire. Seeing his minions could no longer hold on, the life god sacrificed them anyway. He forced them to fly until every last hair burned to ashes, just to clear a path straight to Shaoling. What he didn't expect was that Shaoling was thinking the exact same thing, but in the opposite direction. She scorched them to open a way for herself, charging straight at the god's face. By the time he realized what was happening, it was already too late. Shaoling zipped through and blasted a hole clean through the life god's head, a gaping crater like a damned cave. She was already on the other side. He coughed up a ton of blood, but still didn't die. Even bragged, "That's not enough to kill me," like anyone wanted to hear that. Shaoling leapt toward him with wild strands of flame wriggling above her head. From those few fire strands, she whipped out a full-blown fireball like something straight out of the Uchiha clan. The surrounding air expanded violently under the pressure of the heat, distorting space, catching the life god completely off guard. Since when? She was happy to explain. This was the purest fire essence, the undying flame. It wouldn't go out until it had completely incinerated you. The god of life freaked out, thrashing like mad, instantly hatching all his spirit eggs so his underlings could rush out in a frenzy. "I won't let you get your way, you stinky woman." This time he went all in too. His snake heads were even bigger than before, swarming like mushrooms after the rain, mouths wide open, lunging forward. Shaoling didn't have time to handle them one by one. She hurled the massive fireball straight down. "Go meet each other in hell!" Tiny person, but boy did she have an arm on her. The fireball seemed to distort from the force of the throw, but quickly regained its perfect roundness just before hitting them. It looked like a sun, packed with a ridiculous amount of energy. Even super beings miles away could see it blazing clearly. It was beautiful, blinding. Wherever it landed, the ground melted like ice on a hot pan. The snake heads craned up high only to be completely eaten away. The life god had no facial features. Panic was written all over him as his underlings got wiped out in a flash. Now he had to face her alone. The fireball slammed into the ground like a cannonball made of iron, shaking the place for a few seconds before slowly eating away at the earth underneath. With every inch it sank, the force intensified. The true destruction came when the ball stabilized on the ground and exploded one final time with its remaining energy. A shockwave rippled out for hundreds of meters, crushing everything beneath it. Fire burned through every single cell of the life god's body. He writhed and screamed in agony, thrashing about like mad. Every time he tried to fight back, Shaoling, from above, would press down harder, giving him zero chance to recover. His hoarse screams were quickly swallowed by the sound of roaring flames. His biggest weakness, his inability to move, had now become fatal. claws stretched out from the fire, sharp and ready to grab Shaoling. But she didn't move. She just stared at them. The claws stopped a meter from her face, froze like they'd run out of battery, then shattered into pieces and crumbled down gently at her feet. That fireball was exactly what she said it was. It wouldn't stop until every living thing inside was burned to nothing. Once it had done its job, it vanished without a trace, leaving only smoke and mist swirling in the air, wrapping around the final blackened fragments. Those were the last broken sounds the life god managed before he was reduced to nothing but ashes. Is it really over? The super beings looked on with wide, hopeful eyes. There wasn't a single trace left. The life god had truly been destroyed. The victory is for Shaoling. Since all the gods had been sent out to kill in one big sweep, there was no way the Blossom Federation could be burning in chaos while the Freedom Federation stayed peaceful. After a whole day of brutal fighting on both sides, the smoke had grown so thick it nearly covered the ruined rows of buildings. A loud boom rang out. Something heavy had just stomped down. At this point in the war, nothing surprised anyone anymore. This one was one of the 12 gods dispatched to the old fortresses in Dom's territory to wipe out the Misty Mountain forces. Once fully materialized, it looked like some hellspawn crossbreed between a spider and a dog, wrapped in metal armor. It stood there scanning for survivors, and if you were still alive, the smart move was to play dead. But nope, not this super being. This guy just had to poke his head out from behind a chunk of wall, hacking up a huge cough like he was dying to let the whole world know he was still kicking. Unfortunately, this god was a bit tone-deaf. Sensing only a weak spiritual presence, he figured everyone was already dead. He was just about to turn away and go look for more targets when, whiz, a bullet came flying out of nowhere and smacked him square in the face. Smack! It almost knocked him off balance. Almost. But that was all the bullet had in it. The god just stared, eyes wide, in the direction the shot had come from, and who else could have fired it but that same super being in the full-body suit? The guy was running on fumes. Every last drop of power he had left had been poured into that one desperate shot. And still, the god just stood there like a steel tower. Oh shit, the guy groaned helplessly, realizing he'd just screwed himself over big time. There are still survivors. The god turned around, pissed, and unleashed a blast of deep purple spiritual energy. The force came crashing in, flaring up like a blinding light shining down clear into the next life. The super being felt despair seep into every joint of his body. Oh mama, goodbye mama. This spring, I ain't coming home. Usually side characters die before they even know what hit them. But this guy, he never expected he'd get to bask in the main character's spotlight today. A huge body leapt forward, planting itself squarely between the super being and the incoming attack, then flicked it back like swatting a fly. The spider had to scramble and twist all 6 of its freaky long legs just to dodge it. Its own move nearly messed it up. Weird. How did he not notice this guy earlier? The dude announced his entrance with a mighty stomp. That black and white fur, crackling with green spiritual energy, could only belong to one beast. Po, big brother of the wine deity. With a face like someone stole his lunch, Po gritted his teeth, glaring like he was ready to throw down. It was shaping up to be one hell of a fight, if Po hadn't suddenly thrown his hands on his hips and burst into maniacal laughter. Ha ha ha! Hee hee! What perfect timing! Arrived just in time! He cackled like he just won the lottery. His face lit up like fireworks. This was his moment, the one he'd been waiting for his whole life. Showing up like a pantless hero to earn the worship of his little bro. Take a break, lil bro, he said coolly, turning his ruggedly handsome face toward the person behind him. Big bro's got this. Looked like he was flexing hard, but the joy in his voice couldn't be hidden. He'd arrived just in time to save his brother. What a day. Only, something felt off. The super being blinked. Did this panda just call him little bro? He froze, afraid to move. Even without a word, Po sensed it. That dazed dude staring back wasn't the petite wine deity. Who the hell are you? Where is my brother? Po yelled, pointing at him. The man jolted like he'd been slapped. Me? I'm with the Freedom Federation, a sergeant in the First Land Combat Squad. Name's Oil Discovery. Oil Discovery, in a skin-tight cement gray suit, fighting monsters on the battlefield. Who in their right mind came up with this squad? While Po and Mr. Oil Discovery were busy pointing fingers and going, "You? Me?" at each other, someone else chimed in with a confused voice. Wait, isn't this Freedom Federation territory? Isn't what? Bro, you took us to the wrong place. Po was fuming. He had trusted wrong person. Po lost it. He leapt onto the guy's shoulders, shaking him so hard his tongue flopped out. What kind of navigator are you? You trying to kill me? Longer's wings and flapped like mad, but still couldn't escape Po's iron grip. Furious, he shouted back, Don't blame me. You're the one who charged out in a panic. This place is only 300 kilometers from Blossom's base. At full speed, we could have made it in 20 minutes if you didn't fly the wrong way. Po didn't care. He was directionally blind. Screw this. Let's go now. Po was terrified something had already happened to his little bro. But wait, Oil Discovery yelled, desperate for his life. Aren't you going to save me? I'm dying over here. Before Po could answer, the spider god screamed in rage. You think you can just show up and leave as you please? Who do you think I am? With that, he spat out a huge, slimy green net aimed straight at Po. Well, so much for leaving. Unless Po took this guy down, there was no getting to his brother. You're noisy as hell, Po growled. His fist flared up in flames. He gave a side-eye so intense, it almost popped the eyeballs of Longer behind him. The panda launched a fire tornado straight at the web. Soft-looking as they were, the web and the flames collided with a thunderous boom. The fire burned through the net in seconds, turning it to ash, and didn't stop, zoomed right toward the spider god. The spider didn't realize until he saw the sparks floating toward him. The fire tornado slammed right into his face like a bucket of lava. The flames clung to him and wouldn't go out until he swiped them away with one of his pincers. Smoke rose in thick columns. Half his face had melted like plastic in fire. He was stunned. That insane panda's fire had not only burned his web, it had hurt him, but it made him laugh. Finally, a worthy opponent. I ain't got time for your drama, Po muttered, deadpan. He just needed to beat this freak to get to Blossom Federation. Out of nowhere, 2 more spider faces appeared, blocking his path. More enemies? Po shouted. Where the hell did these 2 come from? They didn't bother talking. They just blasted twin spiritual energy balls, merging them together, and launched it straight at the panda. It was scorching hot, almost acidic, burning houses and roads, leaving a huge, steaming crater. No one knew when Po dodged, but he popped out again from behind a clump of dirt like nothing happened. Annoying, there are 2 more? He was pissed, but the spider god thought he was scared. He scuttled over and bragged, These 2? They are my wives. All have my power. Both ladies stared at Po, confirming the statement. One had pink and white tones, the other yellow and black. Okay, dude had taste, Po had to admit. This was probably the first god being who brought his whole family to war. Po blinked. Wait, they're really your wives? Yup, both of them. The spider god was showing off now, flaunting their power and everything. Po wasn't listening. He was still stuck on 2 wives. That ugly face of yours got married? Twice. What is wrong with this world? Hey now, we're here to fight, not throw insults. What I mean is, look at me, a national treasure level beast like me, handsome as hell, and I'm still single. How do you get 2 wives? That's bigamy. Illegal. He was fuming. Po's spiritual energy exploded like a volcano. He hadn't even attacked yet, but the pressure was insane. His enemies stuck out their tongues in shock. This panda looked like a clown a second ago. Now, terrifying. Not good. Long Air saw that Po was going off the rails again. He grabbed Oil Discovery's hand and dragged him out of the rubble to escape. He'd heard the panda's annoying rants all the way here. He knew how nuts Po was. Better run before they got roasted too. Meanwhile, Po's energy surged and shaped itself into a giant green foot. It stomped forward, powered by the loneliness of a hot single guy watching everyone else video call their girlfriends, or, worse, flaunt their 2 wives on the battlefield. His roar tore through the sky. Even the spider god Odd's eyes popped wide open. Then came the punch, fueled by raw rage. Po snapped, Today, they'll be widows!